All right, welcome back, everybody. Week 3. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I'm going to record these because I know we're still having some issues with computers and such. So hopefully, once you get your computers working, you can go back and watch some of these videos to get up to speed. Now, let me share my screen. Okay. And huh, where's my share? There we go. Okay. Put myself over here to the corner, other corner. Okay. So a couple of housekeeping items. I did post on the Slack that this was instructions for getting the shadow working, but here in our main channel, we have the this week's lesson plan posted on the website. We're focusing on Blueprints, which is Unreal Engine's visual scripting coding system, which helps us make things that actually do things in the game. I have also posted a project file, which I'm going to be using this afternoon, which you guys can use this if you want to. For those of you that are having trouble with your PCs, you could download this project and you'll be at the same point today as we are. So you don't have to create the field and the player and all that stuff. You can just use this project. And then lastly, we are going to be using a soccer goal for some logic. So I've created a 3D model here and also posted it, which you can download and save. And let me just see if that is one more person trying to get in here. Okay, this stuff is, oh, nope. Okay, we're all good. All right. So be sure to check this out. And all right, well, let's get right into it then. I'm going to close this and I'm going to close that, my notes and that. Okay. So here we go. This is the project that I uploaded to Slack. Again, you're welcome to use it or continue using your own. What we're going to do is first, I'm going to give you an example of why we might want to use a blueprint. So let's pretend we wanted to create some player dummies that would be in front of the goal. So I could always go up to here and let's see, we got somebody else joining us. There's Trinity. Hello, Trinity. Welcome aboard. Okay, so let's go here and let's say, well, I could always go to shapes and, I'll do a cylinder for a player. Okay, and I'm gonna go and give it a material. I'll just pick something like maybe see a orange something. I'll just go with this red one. And I'll kind of save it, sorry, scale it to be about the size of a player. Okay, that looks good. All right, now I'm going to put a few of these in front of the goal, and these are going to be players that I need to try to get around with. So I'm just going to duplicate these. And if you remember, if you're in the move mode, not the rotation and not the scale, but the move, you can hold down the Alt key and just kind of drag a couple of these guys out. All right, now I'm going to test this out. I'm going to press play. And all right, let's see. Run up to them and yeah, these are way too big. They need to be about the size of my player. Okay. So in this case, I would have to go and resize each of these individually. I'd have to say, okay, let's do 80%, 80%, 80%, so forth and so on. That's a lot of work, right? Wouldn't it be easier if we could had somewhere where we could just have a master that says, okay, here's my player dummy, and then I can just adjust that. So that is what a blueprint is, and I'm going to show you how that works. Let's delete these. And if you're following along, go ahead and create in your content folder a new folder called Blueprints. All right. Now we're going to create our very first blueprint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go up here, all kinds of things I could add, animation, particle systems, materials, but I want to create a blueprint. And let's read some of this together. Blueprints are special assets that provide intuitive node-based interface that can be used to create new types of actors and script level events. So an actor in a game in Unreal Engine is something that's in the game world. So this goal is an actor. Our player is an actor. And later on, we're going to create an actual soccer ball that has realistic physics, and that will be an actor as well. So let's go here and create a new blueprint class, and we'll pick actor all the way at the very top. It gives you all different kinds of blueprint types, but 80% of the time you're going to be working with an actor. And what I like to do is give just like my materials that I rename with MTL, I like to label all of my blueprints BP underscore. So I'm going to say BP underscore, and we're going to call this uh, dummy player. Okay. Now let's open that up and take a look. And this is going to be yet another interface. You get used to this, but it can be overwhelming at first. So let me point out the main parts of this interface. Over here, you have a tab called Components, and these are all the things that you can add to your blueprint. So if you click here, you can see you can add shapes, you can add movement mechanics, you can add cameras, all different kinds of things here. And let's go ahead and add a cylinder. Okay, so type cylinder, and there it is. I'm going to scale this a little bit. We'll say 0.6, 0.6, and 0.6. One thing I did not do right there is click this lock. And if I had done that, that would have been easier. I could just go here and say 0.7, and it would change all of them at the same time. All right, and then I'm gonna size this up again. Same tools, use the space bar to rotate between move, rotate, and scale. You can also use the W, E, and R keys on your keyboard. So I'm just gonna scale this up just like that, and I'm gonna move it right like so. Okay, so these are all the things in my blueprint so far. So maybe I want to say, oh, I also want to give my dummy players something that looks like a head. So I'll go in here and I will go to uh, a sphere and I'll just move that up here. Okay. Now, just like in our regular level, and I'll dock this. In our level here, right, we have our objects over here and then the details over here. And blueprints work in a similar way. So here's our objects. Let's call this our dummy player's head. This kind of looks like a microphone, doesn't it? We'll move it up here. Over here we have details. So I'm actually going to rename this to head and then the cylinder, rename it to body. Down here are variables. We're not using those tonight, but we will soon. Okay. And then the viewport, obviously, just like our regular game or map level, we have a visual representation. So the same thing is with our player here. We have a visual representation. And then The other thing I want to show you, I know there's all kind of tabs here. Unreal Engine loves tabs. Right here is the event graph. And for those of you who have a coding background, this is where all of our logic is going to go. So for instance, if I wanted to say, hey, when I first play the game and I have this blueprint in my scene, I want to do a hello world. I'll drag out of this pen and I'll type print string here. I'll say, well, it's already there. We'll just say hello world. Hello world. Okay. And later on, remember we talked about the goal. So for our soccer goal, the physical goal, we're going to use something called actor begin overlap. And what we're going to do here is say when the ball overlaps with the goal, we're going to award the player a score, +1. But again, we'll be doing that a little later in the week. So, and again, you always want to compile and save frequently while you're working on these. Compile, save. And for my one-on-one classes that I teach Unreal Engine, my students say they get tired of me saying that because I'll always say, okay, now compile, save, compile, save, compile, save. All right, and let's go ahead and do a save all. And I'll stop right here briefly. Does anybody have any questions? I know that's a lot. All right. So let's say, okay, for the player's head, I want to change the material. And I'm going to let's see if I got some more fun colors here. I'll pick this concrete. And then for this, for their body, I'll do let's say whatever this one is. Okay. Now, compile, save, like I said. And now let's go back to our level and let's drag a few of these guys in here. Okay, so these are my fake players. Gonna save all, and I'm gonna test it out. Run up to these guys. You might have noticed the hello world there that popped up in the left-hand corner. Okay, and like before, these are a little too big. However, and here's where the fun thing with blueprints comes in. If I edit this one, it will change all of them. So I'm going to go and scale this down like so. And I'm going to do the same with the head. Oops. Need to get that middle one here to do that. Then I'm going to drag this here. Compile, save. And when we go back to our level, look at that. All of them changed at once. Okay, now we do need to drop these guys down. Remember, we hit the end key on the keyboard and it'll drop it down to our surface most of the time. Okay, and now I'll press play. Take a look here. All right, much better. So maybe I'll say, okay, I want the head to be a little more up here and I want it to be red. Up here, pile save, and voila. So you can see how this can be very powerful when you're wanting to build things out. You, instead of going one by one, adding something individually, resizing it, changing the materials, you create one master, one blueprint here, and it is going to be something that you can just drag in the world. And every time you update it in the blueprint, it'll always be there. So let's take it a little further. Let's add another cylinder and we'll create some arms. so to speak. So we'll go here to cylinder. I'm going to go this way. And now I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Usually, whenever you're rotating something in Unreal Engine, by the way, it's always in 90-degree angles. So if you ever are trying to eyeball it, it looks kind of close, but you're like, no, it really needs to be 90 or minus 90 or 0 or 180 or something like that. Okay, and then we'll scale this to, and see if I drag this out. There we go. Okay, move it down a little, compile, save. And now all of our players have arms. Okay. And we could, rotate these individually because, they're all kind of, looks like they're facing this way. We want them facing towards the field. So what I will do is I can go in here and just kind of rotate this again. Again, 90 degrees. Compile, save. Everybody's good. There we go. And I know that's the worst looking player dummy. Never said I was an artist, but that is kind of how we do this. Okay. So we've got that in there. And remember our code, which we will get to later this week, is hello world. And this is going to happen every time we press play or our program starts. And there you see it up there on the left. Okay. And I believe the reason we got 5 hello worlds is because we have 5 of these guys in the level. So if I took those out, we should only see the hello world twice. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to spend 10 minutes, and I know this is hard for you guys to do without a computer, but again, go back and watch the video. We're going to create a table that we can place throughout our level and also give it a fun material. So we had created well, we're going to stay here in the blueprints. So make sure everything is saved up. And we're going to, again, right click, blueprint, and actor. Let's call this BP underscore table. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open this up and we're going to use some basic geometry to create a table, maybe something on the sidelines to put drinks on and such for the players. So again, we'll go up here, we'll add a component, and let's start with the legs actually, because I went through this earlier and it was easier to do the legs first. So again, this will be another cylinder. Put it there. We'll get this, scale it down a little bit, and then up. There's one leg. Okay. Oops. All right. And it doesn't have to be, don't worry about if it's not perfect, like the legs are perfect, but let's just kind of duplicate these things. And we'll move over here. It's easier if you have the snapping right here on, which we talked about last time. The lower the value, the more pronounced the snapping is going to be. I believe that's true. Let me double check. No, it's the opposite. The higher the value is, the less you're going to be able to move it. So if you wanted to move it almost completely without any snapping, you would set it to 1. See how fine that is right there. So we'll go back to 10. That was a pretty good one. I'm just going to delete that and recreate it again. Go over here and create this one. And just kind of eyeball it, make sure everything looks relatively okay. Oh, this one needs to go over a little bit. And I think another thing you can do is we talked about you can look at the top view where we can see, okay, those look good. And then the side view, one of the side views to make sure that, okay, yep. So that looks good. All right, now we'll put the top on our table. And so the way that we'll do that is we'll go add, and we're going to just add a cube. Okay, this will be the top of our table. Remember WASD keys, just like in playing a game, let you move and zoom and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's put that right there. And again, don't worry about it being perfectly proportional. We're really just trying to see how blueprints work
Did
rather than
I miss something, or does the alt drag not do the duplicate on the blueprint?
that is a great catch, Mike, and that is a quirk of Unreal Engine that it does not work in the blueprint editor for some reason. It's
Okay.
been yeah, so um I'm sorry I should have mentioned that. So you do have to kind of do Control C, Control V, that kind of stuff. All right. That's looking halfway decent. I think maybe move it over here a little bit, go up here. All right. Gonna actually make my table a little longer. So I'll just do that. Let's go again and compile and save. And just like when in Windows, File Explorer or Mac, you also have over here kind of like parent folders, and sometimes it's a good way to organize. So I might call this, um, I might put my legs as a child of my cube. And the way that you do that is simply select all these. If you click the first one, shift click the last one, drag them right under here. That doesn't really do anything except for to make it so that now the if you move the top part, it'll move the whole thing. Okay. And let's practice one more time. Let's make these kind of steel tables. So let's go create a fun new material. I don't know if this thing would stand up with being that long. Okay, so again, I'll compile, save, go over here. Um, I'm going to create a new folder called materials. You could also put it in your My Assets folder like we did. Just want to show you again how we can do some of these common things like creating new folders. So click materials, excuse me, double click that, and then we'll right click right here is one of the common things. So it's always at the top. You could also go down here and pick material if you need something that's not one of these common ones. And I'll call this MTL steel table. Go ahead and do a file save all, which is also Control Shift S for you guys that like quick keyboard shortcuts. All right. So here we've got a preview of what this is going to look like. And another thing I wanted to mention is you can also, this doesn't have to be a sphere. You could say, I want to see what it would look like as a box or a plane. And I think this one actually, you can even pick a custom mesh, but we'll just stick with the box. So I want this to be a really shiny table. So if you remember, we'll pick the base color. We'll bump it down a little bit here. And then the way, that might be a little too white actually. Put it back where it was. Okay. We're going to set the metallic to be really high. So I'll do 0.9. Okay. You don't really see a whole lot there. That's because, believe it or not, um, the key one here is the roughness. So if you were going to do the roughness as 1, it's basically like a matte coating, right? Just a matte if you've ever painted your house or painted anything. And then the opposite would be if you set it really low, that's where you're going to get a lot of shininess. So if once I hit 0.2 and tab, you'll see over here we get a lot of reflection from the environment. Okay. All right. Let's save that up. Move this over here. Another helpful hint, and this is also if you use Visual Studio or a lot of other programs actually in your browser, you can right click on a tab and say close other tabs or close tabs to the right. So I'm going to do close tabs to the right because we don't need any of those right now. All right, so we're back in our table here, table blueprint. And let's go ahead and put that material that we created. I called mine MTL steel table. Okay, and because so these are all different meshes. So basically we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3D objects. That's why I want these legs to also be that metal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo what I just did. And here's another thing you can do. This doesn't always work, but I'm going to select all of the 3D objects. And again, this doesn't work. Sometimes you have different components that don't have similar properties, but materials is one that all 3D models have. So I'll just do that. Again, search for MTL steel table, and there we go. I'm going to compile and save, go back out to my field, and I'm just gonna drag some of my new tables here to my environment. Okay, this one. Now you see how it's kind of sinking in the ground? What I should do, best practice, especially if I'm going to have a ton of these tables in my game, is to go and lift this up a little bit and test it out. Okay, take this one out. There is a way to do this mathematically, but it's late here in Florida, so I'm just going to kind of keep moving it up until it looks right. Compile, save, go over here, and yeah, that's it right there. All right, so we'll add some more. And another thing to do in level design is if you rotate stuff a little slightly, gives it a more natural, organic look than just having rows of perfectly aligned. And here you can also use the Alt to duplicate your blueprints. So I'll create just a few more here and rotate it. And we'll say, copy this one. And this is one that the stadium staff has not assembled yet. So it's going to be laying against the wall like this for somebody to put it together. All right, let's save everything up, test it out, and then we will wrap up for tonight. Okay, here's our dummies. And it's like they have collision built into them, which is cool. Here's the goal I talked about, which again, if you can either make this like we did our dummies here, just using simple geometry, or you could take the goal model and just import it into Unreal Engine. And here's our table, nice and shiny. Got some reflection on it. It's got collision. I can't run through it. I could probably jump on top of it. Whee! Okay. And here's the one that they need to come and fix. All right, so that is the basics of blueprints. And what we're going to do next time is we're actually going to make a blueprint that does things. So these don't really do things, right? They're static. But what if we wanted to make these players move or spin? How could we do that? And again, all that magic is going to happen in this event graph where we'll start to add things like rotate, add local rotation, add world rotation. In fact, let me try this out real quick. What if we put 90 and we put it in the tick so that it happens every frame? Compile, save, and okay, well, not a great effect, but there you can see they're actually doing stuff. They're rotating. It's hard to see. But we will look at that a little bit more tomorrow. So I do want to stop. And does anybody have any questions? Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, there they go. I had it set too fast. Now they're kind of going under the field. That's not cool either, but there you can see we didn't write any traditional software code, but just by hooking this rotation up to this event tick, we have some functionality. All right. I wanted to ask real briefly before we go. Trinity, you said you were able to get your shadow computer working?
So yeah, basically, yeah, I was just able to like sign in, and it showed me like a page where it says like new projects and stuff. So I think that should be like working, right?
So, do you have the Epic Games launcher?
No, it didn't show me that. It just showed me like new projects.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, I'll probably be getting in touch with you guys again tomorrow to help you get that set up. Because we do want you to be able to get that set up pretty quickly so we don't get too far behind. And I apologize for the issues getting logged in.